When Daniel opened the window that morning, the city felt like a living organism, restless, pulsing, and tired. The sound of car horns mixed with the screech of city buses braking, the hurried footsteps of people heading to work, and the constant hum that never ceased, not even in the dead of night. There were days he felt the city was perpetually pushing him forward, making it impossible to just stop and breathe. From the balcony of his small 10th-floor apartment, the view was a composition of buildings so close together they seemed like competitors vying to block out the most sunlight. Below, a busy 6-lane road. On the corner, a 24-hour CVS. And right next door, a bagel shop whose smell of fresh bread was the only pleasant thing in that sea of concrete. He took a deep breath, but the air that entered his lungs felt heavy. "This isn't where I want to grow old," he murmured to himself. Inside, Helena was making breakfast. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee, strong and comforting, filled the entire apartment. She always woke before everyone else. It was almost a silent ritual. There was something poetic in the way she set the table, as if every movement carried an intention, a delicacy. Daniel approached and kissed her forehead. "Sleep okay?" he asked. "I slept," she replied with a sweet smile. "I dreamed about the house in the country again." He laughed. "Again." "Every night," she said, turning to him with a serene glow in her eyes. He just stood in silence, watching Helena as she buttered toast for the kids. The truth was, he had changed on the inside too. Something in him was begging, pleading for a different life. The kids appeared soon after, rubbing eyes still puffy with sleep. Lucas, on the cusp of his teenage years, was trying to feign maturity while scrolling on his phone. Clara, the younger one, always brought a contagious energy. "Dad, can you take me to the park after school today?" she asked. Daniel hesitated. His workday was packed with back-to-back Zoom calls and endless bureaucracy. "Not today, sweetie. But this weekend, for sure." Clara pouted, but was quickly distracted when Helena placed her plate on the table. Lucas, meanwhile, looked up. "I dreamed about the dog from the farmhouse," he commented. "He was chasing me all day." Daniel and Helena exchanged a look. It was the perfect opening. "Kids," she said, "we need to talk to you." Lucas raised his eyebrows, and Clara rested her chin in her hands, curious. Daniel took a breath. "We're moving to the country." For a second, time seemed to stop. Then it exploded in joy. Clara jumped from her chair and hugged Helena. Lucas tried to hide his smile but failed. Even the apartment, in its compressed silence, seemed to sigh with relief. The following weeks were a whirlwind of goodbyes and transitions. Daniel hadn't realized how deeply the city had infiltrated their lives until he started packing everything up. Photographs, old notes, broken toys, every object told a story. But at the same time, there was an invisible weight they only perceived they were carrying when they started to leave it behind. Their neighbors, surprised, tried to dissuade them. The country? But there's no Target nearby. What about the kids' schools? You're going to get used to the quiet. Helena would smile patiently. It's exactly what we're looking for. It was hard saying goodbye to the apartment, where they'd built so many memories. But what awaited them was bigger, deeper. On moving day, the city seemed to make one last effort to hold them. The I-95 traffic was especially slow. The street was too loud, and the elevator kept stalling between floors. But when they finally got into their SUV and began to drive away, something in them relaxed. The narrow, building-dominated streets soon gave way to wider parkways. Then, the landscape began to open up, revealing rolling green hills, pastures, sprawling oak trees, and clouds that seemed to rest lazily on the horizon. "Look, Mom," shouted Clara. "Horses, and look at that, Dad." Lucas pointed. A huge lake. Helena held Daniel's hand. "We're almost there." When the SUV pulled up in front of the new house, everyone fell silent. The scene was so beautiful, even the wind seemed to respect the moment. The white farmhouse, with its front porch and wood weathered by the sun, had blue shutters that reflected the sky. A flagstone path led to the door, flanked by wildflowers that Helena was already dreaming of replanting. A small creek ran along the back of the property, producing a soft, almost musical sound. The brown mutt, now officially theirs, ran toward the car, wagging his tail as if he'd been waiting for this family for years. "He remembers us," Lucas said, smiling. Clara ran out, hugging the dog as if she were hugging the countryside itself. Daniel put his hands in his jeans pockets and looked around. The smell of damp earth, the song of birds, the distant lowing of cows. It was another world. "Welcome to our new life," he said. The first days were pure discovery. Helena dove into the idea of a vegetable garden, as if she'd rediscovered a piece of herself. Kneeling in the soil, hands dirty and face lit up, she planted seedlings, as if she were planting dreams. Daniel loved seeing her like this. Sometimes he'd stand on the porch just watching her, marveling at the simple intensity of her actions, watering, fertilizing, talking to the plants as if they were close friends. "I never imagined you'd be so happy in the dirt," he said one afternoon. "I think the land was always calling me," Helena replied, smiling. "I just couldn't hear it over the noise of the city." Daniel understood. The city shouted, the country whispered. Perhaps that was why everything here felt more true. He began to find his place too, taking care of the animals, feeding the chickens, fixing the pasture fence, patching the roof. All of it had a meaning his old routine had never offered. He was becoming stronger, calmer, more centered. He'd always liked working with his hands, but in the city, there was no space for that. In the country, every swing of the hammer had a purpose. The kids, meanwhile, seemed to be living on a different planet. Lucas, once glued to his phone, now created adventures in the pasture. Clara collected wildflowers and interesting stones. They both spent hours running through the fields with their faithful dog, always returning exhausted and grinning from ear to ear. "Dad," Clara yelled one morning, "there's a family of ducks in the creek, and I found a huge rock that looks like a meteorite." Lucas said. Daniel laughed. It was impossible not to. There was a contagious joy in this place. In time, the family created new rituals. Every Sunday morning, they had picnics, checkered blanket on the lawn, homemade sourdough bread, cheese from the local farm stand, fruit picked right from their own trees. Sometimes relatives would visit, and the farmhouse would fill with laughter, stories, and the smell of good food coming from the kitchen. It was like stepping back in time, a time Daniel hadn't even lived, but recognized within himself, as if it had always been there, waiting to be rediscovered. The kitchen became the heart of the home. The smell of Helena's slow cooker meals brought an indescribable feeling of home. She prepared dishes she'd never had the patience for in the city. Hearty stews, fresh-baked pies, sun tea. The evenings were special. The fireplace cast a golden, tranquil light across the living room. The kids would curl up under quilts while Daniel told them made-up stories. Helena served hot apple cider, and the silence, that living silence, filled the space like an embrace. "Here, time breathes," Helena said one night, watching the embers. And when time breathes, Daniel replied, "We can finally feel life." It wasn't just their life that was changing. They were changing too. Helena discovered strengths within herself she never knew she had. Tending the garden became almost therapeutic. Talking to the plants, watching each sprout emerge, each flower bloom. It was like watching her own soul flourish. Daniel rediscovered a sensitive side the city had lulled to sleep. The country made him more patient, kinder, more connected to nature and his family. He was learning to listen to himself, to his children, to the wind moving through the trees. The children were completely transformed. The freedom allowed them to develop creativity, courage, and an inner peace. Lucas now spent afternoons sketching landscapes. Clara created elaborate stories about fairies living in the woods. "Dad, look," she'd say, running up to him with a handful of black-eyed Susans. "They look like they're made of sunshine." Daniel would kneel to look at them. "They're beautiful, sweetheart. It's just like you." One evening, as the sun hid behind the hills and painted the sky in shades of orange and pink, Helena sat next to Daniel on the porch swing. "You realize how much simpler everything is?" she asked. Daniel took a deep breath. The smell of freshly cut grass mixed with the scent of the watered garden. Simpler. And more complete. Helena rested her head on his shoulder. "Here, I feel like we're really living." "Me too," he said. "And I never want to go back to that rat race we call the life." She smiled. "The country didn't change us," she said. "It just gave us back what the city had hidden." Daniel was struck by that phrase. It was exactly that. In the distance, Lucas and Clara, with the dog by their side, were chasing fireflies that had begun to appear. Night arrived slowly, unhurriedly, like everything else here. The wind whispered through the trees. The creek shimmered, reflecting the first stars. And there, in that perfect instant, this family knew they hadn't just found a place to live. They had found a home where time had space to breathe, where love grew like Helena's plants, and where life was felt, not just lived. A home where happiness wasn't an event, but a continuous state. A home where every sunrise brought not urgency, but promise. A home where the small things were, in fact, the biggest things of all. And so, surrounded by nature, laughter, human warmth, and peace, they discovered something precious. Life is simple, and it's in simplicity that it reveals its truest beauty. If you enjoyed this, consider subscribing to the channel.